Greetings everybody, welcome to week 2 of academic language and content area learning with our English language learning. I'm Dr. Board TimelineWhen and I'm happy to be with you during week 2. As you can see, I will provide weekly updates on video. I will post these by Monday evening at the latest, and it is quite late, and I'll give my fault to that for it being Labor Day weekend. But I would just like to welcome you all and thank you for a great first week in our discussion together as we discussed DeYoung and Harper's myths about second language learning and how these impact beliefs, shape beliefs, and how they manifest themselves into actions that we see at the instructional level, the assessment level, and just the whole affect level for English language learners. So we have a variety of participants in our class, and we have Catherine Anderson, Jordan, Capri, Lauren, who are all teachers in training, so to speak, but are soon-to-be educators. If I've gotten that wrong, let me know. We also have Kirsten Meixel, who is in her first year of teaching at the secondary level. Kara Chambers, who is a historic kindergarten teacher. And then we have Yuan, Fang Fei, and Jing Hong, who have all been educators in their home countries, but hail from Asia and have their unique experiences being English language learners in the United States and also being multilingual. And then we have Kate and Catherine Huffman, who join us as practicing ELL teachers. And we represent a lot of different parts of Indiana, and we also represent the state of Florida and the country of China. So it's very exciting to have this diversity in the classroom. We are going to learn from each other. So one of the things we started out with during week 1 was the whole concept of the social studies test. And if the ELL student, if they failed geography or if they failed English. And so if we look back at this, we can see that they have done well on the content, but not as well with the English. But if I knew that this student was a level 2 or 3, I believe that they have met the academic expectation or the content expectation of demonstrating their knowledge of geography. But that's the complexity that we often get into with English learners. So I just wanted to go back to that anchor example. So let's take a look at the myths. I really appreciated all of our discussion this week about them and how we are sometimes concomitant in taking on those myths and believing those myths. And if I think of myself prior to entering into the profession, I certainly held to those beliefs. And what's interesting is that some of those beliefs that I held to were not anything that I could stand on a pedestal and speak loudly about. They're just things that are part of your thinking, that are just tacit and there. And so that's worth noting, is that it's not something that we necessarily feel very passionate about, but there are myths that are invoked upon us, and they become powerful mitigators even though they are subtly present. And some of us admitted that these were certainly myths that we had, and then also some of you reflected on how these are myths that content area and general education teachers have towards English learners. So as we saw discussed in our question this week, is you have the just good teaching syndrome, that visuals, it's enough to be multimodal in that way, and if you do that, then you're ahead of the game, and that mere exposure to the language is adequate. So we sort of problematize this, that this is an oversimplification of what ELLs really need, and it doesn't really look at the unique demands of content areas, which is not the same as an elementary situation where the language domain is more social versus academic, and that we tend to take language and conflate it between social and academic language, and we try and make it the same thing when they really are distinct discourses within language learning. And then we know that if these things happen, then these ideologies, and again sometimes these beliefs, are really just sort of back there. We can't really illuminate them, we can't really talk about them, we just believe them to be true, inherently true, without even really examining them. And so these ideologies turn into enactments in situations throughout the country, which you'll be reading about this next week, is ELL programming can change. ELLs can be more subtractively regarded, and linguicism reigns. Linguicism is really discriminatory or prejudicial practices towards ELLs based on their language learning status. And linguicism, much like racism, is one of these things that operates very directly and indirectly on the conditions for English learners. What's distinct about linguicism as well is that linguicism is something that Americans feel okay discussing, and I don't mean this holistically, but generally speaking, that it's okay to poke at not knowing the language adequately versus talking about race explicitly. And so linguicism is a way, is an acceptable way of discourse in many U.S. contexts. Not all, but in many. So those are the interesting things about our myths and how those ideologies turn into action. And we are also going to be thinking about the reforms of the past to the present. And these again will be connected to the ideological conversation we've had about language learning this past week. So the first article you're going to read is Wiley and Wright, and Dr. Wright is actually here at Purdue University, and he and his colleague Terry Wiley, who is now at the Center for Applied Linguistics, will give us the national perspective about what's happening with school reform in the United States. And then we'll move on to the past and looking at Samich Dudgeon and Bowles, the Indiana past, and taking a look at an article from the late 90s. It's pretty dated. That gives us a sense of where Indiana was with language learning programs at that time. And then I've written an article that's in review that I call the Indiana Present, which is what has happened maybe over the last 12 years, and then what is that doing currently for English learners in Indiana. So to go back to a couple logistical things, so our discussion this week, you guys had a great beginning. As the weeks progress in our discussion, chats, and journals, I will be getting a little stricter, a little harder, and so these are some things that I want you to do more of. More connecting to the readings, not just the ones that are assigned for that particular week, but ones that are historic, and perhaps those that are forthcoming, and even those that you have read for other courses. So, and I think too, to ask probing questions of your classmates to extend their thinking, not just good job, I really like what you said, affirmation. Those are all really positive ways to create a very positive climate for exchange, but we also want to see the questions in there. So those are just things to be thinking about for our discussion as we can continue to strengthen how we are operating as a group in there. And I also want you to be transparent. If there's something you're not sure about, please put that ambiguity out there. I appreciate that and welcomes people's admission to that so we can help each other out with shaping new understandings. Some upcoming pieces to be thinking about is the field placement proposal. I have posted this on Blackboard. So if I take a look here on our Blackboard site, pardon me, and we go to our home page, I'm going to go to Student View. And if you go on down here, you'll see at the bottom of the page that I have the field placement proposal due on the 14th at 8 o'clock in the evening. Now this is, of course, is in addition to discussions and online formats that happen between now and then, but this gives you some detail, some criterion about what this field placement involves and what you need to do. And you'll see by clicking here, and pardon that, I have a Macintosh, so it does that, but there is a document that walks you through what you need to be doing to prepare for that. Now, I must say that if you do not have a field placement that's available to you, that you can get to easily, that is a middle or secondary situation, then you need to email me. I have several placements that I can facilitate for you in the Lafayette area for those of you that are still needing one. But you need to let me know as soon as possible before those diminishes opportunities. And as soon as I receive that field placement proposal, you can turn it in as late as the 14th, but no later than that. But as soon as I have that, you can commence your field placement experience. So the rationale for this is it is one of our biggest studies for the semester, and it's going to be a wonderful opportunity for us to be really deeply reflexive about the content area demands of ELLs in secondary schools and what we can do to facilitate their learning in those settings. Obviously, this is connected to the two major assessments that we have in our class, one being a test item analysis and another that evolves into a series of lessons and then a teaching demonstration which you will video of yourself, not the kids, but of you. So a couple reviews on the discussion board timeline. I want us to be really clear about when things are due. On Monday, the discussion question will be posted. Your first posting is expected by 5 p.m. Thursday of a given week. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to wait until 4:59 to post. You can certainly post on Tuesday or Wednesday, but your first post is expected at the latest by 5 p.m. Okay? Your second response is expected by sometime Friday. And then by Sunday, your third response is due by 1 p.m. So the discussion will shut down at 1 p.m. and this is because we want to be respectful of those that have other assignments they need to do, and this gives me adequate time to give you feedback for the week forthcoming. So just be cognizant of those timelines, and I should say that two responses to your classmates in addition to your original posting, it can be more than that, and some of you did do more than that, and that's fine. So, but just keep in mind this time frame so you can be doing well with that. When we arrive at week 4, you will take a turn in a group that will be smaller than the one that you're presently in, which is our whole class. I will divide you into groups of 3 to 4 individuals, and when you're in that small group, you will have a discussion, but the discussion question will be generated by the assigned group leader for that week. And so this is just sort of a progression, a timeline of what's expected of the leader. But again, that does not start until week 4. And I'll get that posted shortly so you can see when your expectation is. You should know that if you are going to present in a given week, you need to be ahead of the game, meaning you need to be ahead of the readings, present a synthesis of the readings to me in addition to your question to be pre-approved before it's posted. Alrighty, and you can see during the week that you lead, you have a lot more responsibilities, but this is just 1 week out of the 15 that we're together. So here's your to-do list for week 2. Post in your discussion within the given timelines. Identify and begin preparing your field placement proposal. And again, if you need help finding a location in the Lafayette area, let me know. And then review upcoming assignments and projects, which I will have posted early tomorrow morning. So that's it for week 2. Thanks for joining me. I look forward to our discussion this week.